According to Facts.com, 76% of all inmates end up back in jail within 5 years. It is so common to see the same prisoners in and out of jail many times. This issue is also known as recidivism. Recidivism is the rate at which offenders are convicted of the same or even a similar crime, and they are returned to serve time in prison. A lot of work is required from both the criminals and the correctional facilities to fight this struggle of recidivism. The main purpose of prison is to take away freedom from convicted individuals, and they are supposed to learn a lesson from this experience of paying a debt to society. Unfortunately, this is not always successful, and I have seen some of my own family members fall into the category of people who do not learn much of a lesson and go back to their old ways once they have freedom. Some people might not even see a problem with their actions, and they could reject any help that is given. Although some might say that this is the life that they chose for themselves, it is important to give people the proper care that they need to become better. These people should still be allowed to return to society, but there should be different measures taken to ensure that they are completely ready to come back into the real world. Convicted criminals are still human beings, and it is wrong to degrade them so much that they feel as if they are unable to ever be as good as those who are not in trouble with the law. With efforts to get these prisoners back into society, the main issue is that not enough is being done to prepare these criminals for their return. And a way to fix this is by gaining a better understanding of why these prisoners return to old habits, providing them with proper support while they serve their time, and holding them accountable to continue a positive lifestyle once they are let out. Going to prison is a journey that the convicted criminal is going to deal with for the rest of their life, depending on if they return or not. Each person's life is unique, and their reason for continuing to commit these crimes is different, but there are common factors that are seen in these people. In an article from The Atlantic titled "Why Crime is a Family Affair," many studies were done to prove that children often follow in their parents' footsteps, including committing similar crimes. Rox Butterfield states that in 2007, the Justice Department's Bureau of Justice Statistics concluded that half of the roughly 800,000 parents behind bars have a close relative or someone who has previously been incarcerated. Growing up around this type of behavior creates a new normal that is hard to get away from. Although being influenced by others as peer pressure, gangs, and drugs can cause these actions to seem normal, getting pushed in the right direction is supposed to happen at home. While caught up in this behavior and going in and out of prison, mental health issues arise quite frequently in these individuals, which can cause people to act out. For example, many inmates struggle with post-incarceration syndrome, which, according to American Psychological Association, the disorder can cause anxiety, rage, depression, and hallucinations. Inmates can experience this during prison or directly after. AddictionCampuses.com mentions that similar cases such as post-traumatic stress disorder, antisocial personality traits, social sensory deprivation syndrome, and substance abuse disorders can all have negative effects on someone following their release from prison. Depression is also common right after prison because factors such as unemployment, negativity towards the criminals, and not enough support can cause them to turn to drugs or even put them right back to the crimes that they committed beforehand. These mental disorders are hard to live with, but developing proper coping skills while incarcerated can help inmates tremendously. Receiving support during incarceration is crucial for the inmates to become successful once they are released to society. An article titled "Why Do Former Inmates Keep Going Back to Prison?" from Cultural Weekly has found that out of all of the inmates with substance abuse, only 11% of those that needed treatment actually receive it while incarcerated. If the substance abuse problems are not acknowledged during prison, then the prisoners will most likely get worse and their time in prison was essentially wasted. Approaches such as rehabilitation and reintegrative shaming, as found in a text titled "Alternatives to Prison," have been found to help inmates immensely. Rehabilitation is important in breaking any addictions with drugs or alcohol that strongly affect the inmate's life. Rehabilitation can also be used for behavioral issues that offenders struggle with, such as aggravation or psychological problems that need to be resolved. Reintegrative shaming has been successful because the technique only critiques the criminal's behavior rather than breaking down the characteristics. It helps them see why their actions are morally wrong, and it helps them get back to society better. In other efforts to assist inmates, an article from the United States Department of Justice archives titled Prison Reform: Reducing Recidivism by Strengthening the Federal Bureau of Prisons has some key solutions highlighted that could be very purposeful. Education is something that inmates commonly lack, so the Department of Justice Archives has suggested in creating a school district for inmates to participate and develop basic skills, get their high school diplomas, and help expand their opportunities for these inmates. Along with educational help, correctional offices are working with inmates to help them learn better job skills so that they can find work easier once they are released. These programs and systems are great for the inmates, and they will be much better if they continue to follow through after prison. Once the prisoners are free to society, the support needs to continue and be reinforced. This is the time that the prisoners need their loved ones most, as they will be likely in shock. Removing negative influences or anything that encourages bad behavior is very critical. PrisonFellowship.org suggests that the best way to resist negative influences is to be aware of them. For example, former inmates need to look for themselves and reevaluate their acquaintances and friendships to make sure that they are looking out for their best interests and not encouraging bad behavior. Ultimately, it is up to the former prisoner to want to change their ways. Many of the programs that are being developed in prison follow up with these inmates, and there can still be support groups for them to attend. Accountability is a group that is great for them, and family members can also join. Accountability is there for the inmates to talk about their struggles with similar people, and together they can help avoid problems and that they might be going through. In the video I am about to show, Jerry does a very good job of explaining that most people leave prison and return to the same things that they were doing before without changing anything at all. However, this is not beneficial for their success whatsoever, especially if they were in a bad place before this. He took the initiative to change his lifestyle and find a better job in construction rather than returning to his old ways. Now, this is where he feels most comfortable, and prison would never be an option for him again. This took time for him, as it will with most people, but there are much better days for those who want them, and it is necessary to take advantage of the programs that are offered to help with success after prison. In conclusion, recidivism, or the returning of prison due to convicting a crime again, is a major issue in prisons in America. Solving this issue is something that takes a lot of time, dedication, and work from all parties that are affected. Prison does not always have the intended response on criminals, and sometimes people do not want to change their actions. In some cases, these inmates just need some care because that is what they lack from their influences at home. Growing up with this being normal is not good for their future life because it is hard to break bad habits. Although, when appropriate measures are taken, the results can be unimaginable for these inmates. Prisoners should have every right to be released into society following their sentence with the correct preparation, so figuring out why recidivism is such a recurring issue, developing a system for care while in prison, and continuing with self-improvement afterwards assures that convicted prisoners can become contributing members of society. Prison is not seen as a good experience, but if the inmate is positive and takes it as a lesson, great things can come out of this struggle.